Welcome back to the Awareness Angle interviews. This week's conversation is one that I've wanted to have for a long time. I'm joined by Cary Johnson, founder of Phishbusters, and someone who's not afraid to challenge how our industry measures security awareness, human risk, and impact. If you work with phishing simulations, awareness platforms, or anything calling itself human risk management, this episode might make you uncomfortable in a good way. So we talk about why engagement doesn't equal impact, why benchmarks are often meaningless, and why vendors marking their own homework is a problem we rarely question. Cary brings a science-first perspective to awareness, focusing on baselines, objective metrics, and what actually reduces phishing risk, not what just looks good on a dashboard. We also dig into repeat clickers, verification skills, why training can create resentment, and why phishing is still the number one human risk, no matter how many new ishing words we invent. This is a practical, opinionated conversation that cuts through a lot of noise. Here's Cary. Welcome back to the Awareness Angle interviews. Who am I joined by this week? Why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Hi, I'm Cary Johnson. I run Phishbusters and out of Ottawa, Canada. So basically, I bring a unique perspective to the industry. So I actually have a science degree, two degrees actually, one in pure and applied science as well as one in geology. So how do I bring that perspective to the industry? Well, I uniquely provide scientific rigor in measuring the impact of security awareness and human risk management programs and platforms, which is missing in the industry right now. There's a lot of misleading sort of marketing going on with regards to benchmarks versus baselines and scientific rigor versus behavioral science. But what's missing in the hundreds of vendors that all claim they have the answers is no one can prove it objectively. No one can prove their product works.
So we've got straight into it now. So
yeah.
If you work in cybersecurity and you deal with any kind of awareness tooling, this episode's probably going to be one that might pique your interest or might get you thinking. I've wanted to do this chat with you for a long time because you're someone that I wouldn't say controversial, but your views kind of stand out on LinkedIn. I've seen you post on LinkedIn, and you're never afraid to put a cat amongst the pigeons. But at the same time, I think you say it like it is in some ways. So yeah, your take on the industry at the moment. There's lots of vendors out there. We're not going to name names today or anything.
No, we don't
like
need
that.
to.
We don't need to. We've both been in the industry a long time as well. I've used a number of vendors. You know, if I'm going to market looking for a vendor, what do I do? Like, I want someone to do phishing and I want someone to do training.
I think what you have to do is you have to ask these vendors to prove that they are providing impact and to prove it in how they measure through baselines and don't accept any conflating baselines with benchmarks. These are two very, very different things. And then and have them prove it. And it shouldn't be that complicated. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give everyone a simple 3-step process on how they can test their platform at the end of this using 3 simple steps that uses scientific rigor that will expose the truth with regards to how these platforms work to reduce phishing. And if your vendor's telling you human risk and security awareness is so much more than phishing, well, I'm sorry, hackers don't care because they're still phishing, right? So it's not what your vendor thinks. The fact is, the vast majority of breaches still start with phishing.
Phishing is still the number one attack vector.
It's the number one human risk. It's the number one human risk. So if you're human risk management and you're not creating impacts with phishing, there's a problem there, right? Like there's definitely a problem. So I'll do that at the very end, and I'll show you how simple the use of scientific rigor can be. It shouldn't be complicated. Like if they're giving you all, like there's so many metrics, it's ridiculous. And there's no point where adding more subjective or quantitative metrics that are not objective, there's no point where adding more of that suddenly becomes objective. What we have in the industry is a lack of what we call one metric that matters, right? We have a lot of metrics that don't matter that should be used to drive one metric that does matter, the one objective metric that proves conclusively impact, right? The North Star metric, some organizations call it.
Yeah.
And this is what is needed in the industry. And don't get me wrong, these are great platforms. There's so much potential. But what's happening is they're playing a game to keep you sticky with the platform. So they're giving you all kinds of engagement and activity metrics, and they're trying to sell you on the idea that engagement equals impact, right? You hear it all the time. Our training is engaging. Measure engagement to quantify risk. All this stuff is to get you to buy into the idea that if people are engaging, they must be learning. So what you do is you're constantly engaging with the platform, but you never have any real guidance on how to use it properly because none of the metrics are objective. None of them actually prove conclusively that the platforms are working.
No.
And this comes from the vendors, investors too, right? The investors they have a strong push on these vendors to create sticky platforms that organizations will use for many years. Right? If you give them the truth and they learn how to create a program quickly that works, they may not be as sticky. Or if they find out that only 10 to 15% of the people are really the risk, which is something I do with my program, I identify these people, well, then that goes against their business model, right? So these are the things that I do. I use science to find out who the real risk is and to prove conclusively that these platforms work to reduce your phishing risk. Is that long enough answer for your question?
That's a long enough answer. Don't worry. Let's go right back to the beginning. You've got 2 degrees. Yep, 2 degrees. How did you get into cybersecurity? How did you land here?
Yeah, I'll try and keep this short because it gets into a bit of Canadian history here. But when I got my geology degree, which was my second degree, the starting point for that industry was the Geological Survey of Canada, right? And doing mapping, using data analysis, scientific rigor in the data, this type of stuff. I'd been doing that for both of my degrees for years.
Yeah.
And at the time, the Prime Minister, Chrétien, did huge cuts to the Geological Survey of Canada. So there's really no starting point for geologists coming out of school. So I had the option to get a third degree or, get into sales, is which I basically ended up doing. And I went into the electronics industry. And then about 24 years ago, I got into the VAR world and cybersecurity. And from there, I realized that there was an issue with phishing. I teamed up with a couple of legacy vendors that I don't need to mention, but that if you've been around long enough, you would know there was 20 years ago, it was only 3 or 4. And I immediately realized, using my science background and how I do scientific rigor and data analysis, there's a problem here. There's something missing, right? So that's how I kind of put it all together and then started my own business. And for years, I've just sort of been quietly dealing with a couple dozen clients a year in high risk industries where compliance is not enough. They need to know it's working, right? The government industry, military and whatnot. And, it's been the last 2 years I finally said, you know what, I'm going to start talking about this because, enough is enough, right? I think it's when HRM came along and I realized that they're just playing the same game in a different way and they're supposed to be the answer. And that's when I started to get a little bit more vocal about it.
HRM is a tricky one, isn't it? Because you're not the only person that's outspoken about HRM not being the silver bullet that some people make it out to be. There's other kind of legacy. Yeah. There's other, no disrespect when I said legacy there, but there's other people that have been in this industry a long time that also don't really see HRM as this silver bullet, or maybe people haven't quite got it right. It's still kind of undetermined and fluffy, and there's different translations of what HRM is and how to measure it. And that's really difficult. going back to the years ago when it was just phishing and everyone was doing phishing and annual training, that was a lot simpler to define, wasn't it? That the world was a simpler place when we just ran simulations and delivered some training.
Yeah, but the thing with simulations is they've never been done properly. They've always been used as a content engine as opposed to actually measuring impact. And when you collect data points, right, when you're collecting raw data, there is almost always a way to use scientific rigor to make sense of it. Right? When you start getting into the subjective stuff, like you're interviewing people and you're asking questions and doing quizzes with subjective answers and stuff, and then somehow this comes out to a human risk score, that's when things start to get fluffy and a little bit, ambiguous, right? And then you add to that the fact that the industry has always been vendors that self-assess themselves. Like, there's a reason this is not acceptable in any other area of cybersecurity. Right. Yeah. You don't have your MSSP do your SOC 2 audit. You don't have your endpoint software provider, security software provider do your endpoint pen test. And there's reasons for that, right? Like HRM and SAT have both played a similar playbook in a little bit different ways, but they're basically self-assessing themselves. And then they're never really transparent in exactly what they're doing. Like, if every time I talk to a client and I say, exactly how do they prove impact? They cannot articulate it. They just simply can't articulate it because the explanations and the definitions are given by their vendors are meant to just limit critical thinking, right? They're meant to either confuse you so you stop asking questions, or you get to the point where it must be working. It must be doing something, right? I think people need to really, if you're in this industry, I think you really need to sit back for a second and just take one day and do a study on metrics. Learn what qualitative and quantitative metrics are. Learn what subjective and objective metrics are. Just learn. It's not that hard. Use ChatGPT. Ask it to give you a definition. Take 10 minutes. Then start carefully reading some of this marketing and some of these claims by these vendors, and you'll see they start conflating all four of them back and forth as they wish. And the fact is, objective metrics are undeniable, right? They're unrefutable, right? And here's the tricky part that some will get, and it'll go over some people's heads, I believe, is that objective metrics are always quantifiable. But quantifiable metrics are not always objective. And when it comes to HRM, they're never objective.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm currently listening to an audiobook, Stephen King, 11/22/63. And it's a really interesting book. But there was a line in it that was quoted the other day that hadn't really resonated with me before, but it was fear, false evidence appearing real. And, it really rung true with me with some things in this industry. Like, we tack ourselves onto an engagement statistic and think, brilliant, we're doing great. We'll latch ourselves onto a phishing statistic, and which we all know can be manipulated, and be like, brilliant, we're secure because this figure says this. And it really resonated with me. Do we actually, some organizations are happy just meeting their compliance requirements and just seeing things through. But if you actually want to ensure that you're secure as best as you can, and your people in your organization are culturally secure, you need to go further than that, don't you? And that's
you have to go outside of the vendor narratives, because I think, honestly, and this may be a bit controversial, the kiss of death is to use these platforms and follow the narratives to a T. Yeah. And they're going to lead you down a path. You're just going to be engaging with these things. You're going to be over engaging because you're going to be blowing the cognitive load of 90% of your users, right? And you have no clue what is and what isn't working. Now, if you backtrack a little bit and you go back to what I was talking about, and you start with the fundamental concept of measuring with a North Star metric, one objective metric that matters, now you can start to play around with how much you want to engage and how exactly you want to engage people to maximize impact, right? But going back to the both industries. So the way I look at it is the security awareness training industry, the legacy training industry, if you will, has always followed the same playbook. They've always conflated benchmarks with baselines, right? Benchmarks compare you to other organizations, and there's vertical siloed metrics. This is how you perform. This is how you compare to others for this simulation, right?
And
then you run
some of
another
those
one.
benchmarks are really vague. Like I've seen benchmarks on tooling where it's been technology, retail, military. You know, it's there.
Yeah.
There's like only 10. Like it's not detailed at all. And some organizations, like, am I a retail company? Am I a technology company? Am I a,
Yeah.
you know,
and they're unverifiable. They come from the vendor. Like you have no clue what you're comparing. They're meant to make you look good. But the point is, they're benchmarks. They're just snapshots. They don't tie together to give you a longitudinal view, right? And you'll notice that vendors always conflate it with baselines. They use benchmarks and baselines in the same paragraph often. So they try and get you thinking that you're doing baseline analysis, but you're just doing meaningless benchmark snapshots. A baseline, on the other hand, isolates impact and compares you to your own organization. So it isolates impact within your organization, and it's verifiable because you know the metrics are real. And now what you want to do is you create a true baseline and you reset it, let's say every month, so that every month you have a new baseline looking forward, but looking backwards, you have incremental impact. The key here isn't just baselines, it's incremental impact. It's the constant feedback objectively telling you if you're on the right track, what is and what isn't working. Now you've got the guidance needed to make sense of these platforms and to use them optimally and to get away from the narratives. So you were talking before about how, it started to get fuzzy when, it's like vendors started talking about, look at this metric and look at that metric, right? Something like that, I believe. And you said?
Yeah.
So if you look at the history of SAT, it started out, it was just phishing. It was phishing click rates.
Yeah.
Right. And then one of the vendors came out, I can't remember which one, but one of the vendors came out with this phish report button.
Yeah.
And then the new narrative was, don't look at click rates, just look at the report rate because it speaks to engagement. Right. So this is why people are just being tugged back and forth, left and right. And everyone in the industry's got a different version of what they think is the important metric. And the fact is, most of them are meaningless. Right. There is no North Star metric to guide you.
For a long time, I ran a phishing campaign and didn't ever record report rates. We didn't have a report button. We never rolled one out because report buttons, they don't work on every tool, on every email plane. The Gmail app, the iPhone app doesn't have a report button, and there was ways to get it working, but it was always clunky. Yeah. So we never had a report button, but we never reported that metric because reporting's great, but if I was going to look at anything, I want to know who's actually clicking. People, there's a fear with reporting, like, oh, I've done something, or that kind of thing. Reporting is like it's a bolt-on behavior. Clicking is more instinctive. Opening is more instinctive. Falling for a fish is more human than going out of your way and reporting it. We all break the speed limit in our cars, but there will be one or two that don't. And for me, that was a similar thing. It's like those that stick to the speed limit are the people that report stuff, perhaps. So that's always been a tricky one for me.
Yeah, that's an interesting point there about using the button and its limitations. But I mean, I think that's where kind of marketing comes into play. I think there's a lot of things that are marketed by vendors that it's very difficult to actually get them to work. But, like simulations and click rates definitely do work. But one of the things that I've noticed that they like to get into all the time is these repeat clickers thing, right? And the problem is that within repeat clickers, there is a lot of segmentation that needs to be done beyond that. Right. So vendors want you to look at repeat clickers. Repeat clickers could be, you run 10 campaigns, someone clicks 2, but some click 3, some click 4, some click 5, some click 6, some click all 10. There's a division within these repeat clickers. And what I do with my analysis is I break them up into segmentations so that you have your never clickers. And then within the repeat clickers, you have your learners. So they can click once or twice, maybe even 3 times, but they stop at a certain point. The movers continue to click. And they end up being segmented through my analysis, and I have an AI algorithm that I use, and whatever. I don't want to get into the science of it, but they segregate themselves into what I call movers. They self-identify as the problem. They're not never clickers, and they're not learners. Vendors don't want you to know this because it tends to be 5 to 15% of the organization, depending on the maturity of the security awareness program. They don't want you focusing on the 5 to 15. They want you focusing on the repeat clickers, which is everyone's going to click sooner or later, right?
Yeah.
So you have your never clickers, you have your learners, and you have your movers. What do you do with your movers? You give them focus training. What do you do with your never clickers and your learners? These are the people that know phishing. You ask them to report phishing. And now you're driving both the click rate down and the report rate up with proper objective segmentation analysis. It has to be based on scientific rigor. But my biased opinion, of course.
I think a lot of organizations probably just look at repeat clickers as a single level and then deal with them as the same, as one and the same, like group them together. I like the fact that you're going beyond that and looking at a deeper level to break
But you
it
have
up
to
even further. Yeah.
And another problem with repeat clickers is they're clicking because they're not responding to your training. So what are you going to do? Give them more of the same training? I mean, I think Einstein called that, the definition of insanity, right? Like they're repeat clicking. They're not responding to your training. Let's find them and give them more. Well, no, you got to find a different way to train these people, right?
Yeah.
These are people that need a different, and let's face it, when you talk about building a culture, if you identify the people that really need training and you handle it properly, like you go to them and say, look, we've noticed that you're clicking a little bit more than you should. Let's deal with this to protect you both at work and at home. This is to protect you personally, right? And it's hard for people in that situation to argue. But where you do get people frustrated and arguing is when they know they don't need training. So you create a culture of resentment, and then you got vendors saying, we create a security culture. You can't do both. You cannot create a culture of resentment and a security culture at the same time, because people that are resented, they don't care, right?
Yeah. Those repeat clickers, I mean, if I think about repeat clickers in organizations that I've looked after, they could be on one end someone that is extremely vulnerable, that has no idea and needs an arm put in around them and shown some support. They definitely shouldn't be blamed or victimized. And then to the other extreme, it might be your developer that thinks they know best and they're clicking on it to investigate it and look at it and for fun. But actually, it gets to a point where they're overly confident. Like, oh, I can spot a fish a mile off. I knew it was fishing. I just thought I'd have a play. So it's you even just tackling them as one and the same, like repeat clickers, hitting them with the same hammer isn't the right thing to do, because there might be different motivators within those groups. And it's difficult because do you call them to face-to-face training? Because then does that feel like punishment? Does that feel like they're being
that's beyond the scope of what I do, right?
Okay.
I just give people the intelligence and the insight to actually optimize their platforms, which is missing. But the thing is, to answer that question, it depends on the culture of the organization, right?
Yeah.
If you have a unionized environment and you have a small select group of people that are going to live training, they're going to find out real quick. They're going to ask, hey, did you take that training? And they're like, why didn't you take that? You're going to have a problem. So there's different ways to do this. In that case, you may want to do some sort of a computer-based training, but then whittle it down to simple training. Teach them verification skills. Verification skills is the only skill that is guaranteed to kill the attack chain every time.
Yeah.
Don't get into things like, attachments, these are the types of file attachments that are dangerous. Avoid these. Just tell them don't touch attachments if they're unsolicited, right? Keep it simple. Don't teach people to, I'm just going to give you examples where they go down rat holes. Don't teach people to use a safe word with colleagues and family. Teach them to ask a dynamic question that only the real person can answer. The difference is if you tell people to use a safe word, 99% of them never set it up. If you tell them to ask a dynamic question, the implementation is in the awareness itself. They
Yeah.
now have a tool right then and there, right? These are the types of simplified ways that we need to start thinking. Break phishing down and phishing awareness down into 4 simple steps. I have a program. It's the HELP program, HELP. I don't want to get into it. It's not my core thing, but obviously, I mean, I work with dozens of clients every year. There's limitations to what I can do. I'm not a scalable product, right? Like it can't be productized what I do. But because I work with dozens of clients, they do come to me and say, what do we do with these people now? And I'm like, well, here, you can use my help program. Let me help you with my help program, right? But it's all based on simple process geared around verification skills, right? How do you verify things? You know, like if you get something from your bank, you log into your bank, right? You get something internal, you use another communication channel that's authorized and you check with the person that way, right? There's a verification skill for every type of phishing attack. It doesn't have to be rocket science.
I think what you've said there, I don't think all the vendors latch onto that. So there was 2 things you said. The first one, verification skills. When, you know, when we do a driving test or something like that, we learn to drive. It's not necessarily all wrapped up in lovely, fluffy, engaging messaging and stuff like that. It is literally getting the skills we need to operate. An organization I was in, I tried to bring in I didn't get it across the line, but I tried to bring in some kind of data access license where it's like for someone to get that level of permission, they need to pass their test and then they get their license, just like a driver's license, because you can't go on the road unless you're accompanied or you've shown that you can capably do that.
Yeah.
The other thing you mentioned, you used the word intelligence, and it does feel like, and you're talking about like an intelligence source. It sounded like a level up almost from what other people. This is actual intelligence based stuff, isn't it? It's not.
You mean
fluffy.
the insight that I provide?
Yeah.
Intelligent. Yeah. For a second there, I thought I was getting worried. I thought I made a comment about people's lack of intelligence. I was like,
no, you hadn't. No,
because
you
I
hadn't.
never. I'm so careful with it. Yeah, no, yeah. It's basically the insight. If you really think about the security awareness training and the human risk management industry, they've all been geared around the illusion of the intelligence that I actually provide, right? Like the security awareness training industry has always played the game with the benchmarks and the baselines. And we've gone through that. They don't do baselines. They do benchmarks. There's a huge, it's like the difference between up and down, night and day. The human risk management industry is now conflating science washing. They conflate behavioral science with scientific rigor. Behavioral science is the concept of how people make decisions. Scientific rigor is what's required to prove that works. Right? So
not the same thing.
provide that intelligence that they're always trying to create the illusion that they provide, but they don't. And there's going to be vendors watching this, I'm certain, and they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And the problem they have is they're stuck between a rock and a hard place because they know that the majority of their clients, when it really comes down to it, don't use the tools properly. And they don't want to be accountable for that. They don't want to provide the measurement framework to expose themselves with the people that do annual training and then run phishing simulations or something of that nature. They don't want to be exposed to that. So they're stuck, right? They can't do it. Now, the 10% of their 20% of their clients that actually want to drive improvements, that want to create impactful programs, they don't have the intelligence or the data intelligence, or the insight to give them the incremental impact required to tell them how to do it. Right. So that's what I mean by intelligence, like intel, insight.
It feels like you're saying the quiet bit out loud. It's,
yeah, like, I do that a lot.
Don't tell everyone that. You've obviously been close to phishing for years and years and years. If we get back to kind of some more general industry stuff, how have you seen phishing change over the last 5-10 years? I mean, has AI been the big game changer that everyone says or thought it would be? As much changed?
The first game changer was the phishing as a service, the black market service out there, right? And that really was a way bigger differentiator than AI so far, except for deep fakes, right? Which is definitely an AI thing. But phishing as a service, the black market service, when that came out, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, right? Maybe 8. That really accelerated the phishing in terms of sophistication and level of authenticity in the attacks, right? Because phishing evolved from back in the day, it was just text-based. There was no design elements in the email. There was none of that stuff. It was just, click here, right? And people were fooled by it constantly. But then you started to get design elements. Organizations were using notifications with logos and things of that nature. And that kind of segregated out the hackers from the people that didn't know what they were doing. And then along came phishing as a service, and they gave you these templates, so to speak, that were identical to the real notifications, right? And then they gave you the servers to collect your credentials on, and they just gave you the whole package. You didn't even have to speak the language that you were phishing in, right?
No.
And now you've got this belief that all this has been driven by AI, and some of it has, but I think we're forgetting that it's the phishing as a service black market that really shifted the sophistication of phishing attacks, in my opinion, from what I've seen, from what I saw over time. You just got to be careful with the narratives that you hear, right? Like QR code phishing, right? Like was QR code so. QR code phishing, quishing, right? Quishing seems to be this thing that if vendors have just been talking about the last couple of years, like it's just brand. But if you go on McAfee's website and you just Google QR code right on their website and in their blogs and Google QR code, they blogged about this 12 years ago, right? This is not something new, right? And this is the game the industry plays, always pulling out something new to create FUD, fear, all this stuff. Right. And then you got to start to ask yourself the question, it's a chicken and an egg thing. Like, so did QR code phishing become a thing because vendors started talking about it, or was it really a thing before? Right. And I think you got to both are a factor, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In reality.
That's a really interesting one, because people started talking about that around the time that I saw a couple of tools come out that could scan the QR codes in your inbox and go to the destination. And then, so it was like, now's a convenient time for us to bring this to the market again, because we've been talking about it and we've got a tool that can fix it now. So,
yeah, even though McAfee blogged about it 12 years ago. And I think the exact article was, where does that QR code go? Yeah. So those of you at home could just Google, where does that QR code go? And you'll see McAfee September 2012, I think it is, right? And so, it's an interesting sort of line of thinking that we could explore here just for a second, because I find that we're in a tricky situation in security awareness and CISOs in particular, because we have an industry that's educating us, but they're also educating the hackers, right? And the hackers are using all this stuff unfettered, and then we're stuck, focusing on compliance and not getting the insight required to really optimize our programs. And so we're losing a fighting battle, and it's getting worse and worse all the time, because the scales are tipped towards the hackers, right? It's kind of like a guy opens up a glass store in a small town and goes around breaking all the glass windows in the town, right? Like he's gonna get business, But back to my point, like when you think about it statistically, the hackers, they're unfettered. They don't care. They're like they'll use bonus. You've received a Christmas bonus attacks at Christmas time, but you better not be using that in your simulations, right?
No.
So they're using all this intel unfettered, and then we're being held back with what we can and cannot do, right? And then, of course, in my biased opinion, again, we don't have the intel to drive impactful programs. So we don't really know if we're improving. But the hackers, their objective metric is the money in their bank account.
Yeah. Yeah. Phishing, I mean, over the years, though, phishing hasn't really changed, has it? It's the same psychological triggers we're pulling. They've got technically easier to deliver and technically, they can be spun out. I could go online and order a, phishing as a service in a matter of minutes and have stuff going out to wherever I wanted. Probably easier than I could set up a proper mailer list, which is the irony. But fundamentally, the reasons why people click hasn't changed, has it? It's just the delivery has changed and the package has changed.
Yeah, it's gotten more sophisticated. But, one might argue it's gotten a little bit easier to teach how to notice it, right? Because, traditional advice would be, check this, check that, look for spelling, grammatical errors. Your eyes are shifting all over the place looking, it's like you're playing Where's Waldo, right? But as things have gotten more sophisticated and AI has reduced spelling and grammatical errors and phishing as a service has made the look and feel a lot more legitimate, the skills really come down to the basics of looking at the email address and confirming that it's where it claims to come from, checking the link and locating the domain and making sure it's a safe and expected internet destination. And most importantly, always verification skills for different types of attacks. And that's it, because they've taken all the other clues away. So simplify the training. Don't give us another ishing,
I'm running. I joked weeks ago about you could probably have the alphabet of ishing now, because there's probably, even this week I saw mention tishing, Teams phishing, tishing. It's like, we don't need more ishing. It's all phishing, just under different names.
Phishing. Is there one for Slack? Slishing?
Slishing. Yeah.
Is there?
Mishing.
I saw mishing the other day. I'm like, oh boy.
WhatsApp phishing, wishing.
I think it's ridiculous, but at least if it's got an ishing in it, that's one thing. It's when they start with this business email compromise, vendor email now you're starting to talk the language that only the technical people need to know, right? We don't need to know it to that level. I was sitting with somebody a couple of weeks ago having coffee, basically over lunch, and he had just taken some legacy training, compliance-based thing, and it was. He asked me, "Is ransomware a type of phishing?" And I'm like, "Oh boy, there you go." I mean, like that's exactly the problem. I'm like, okay, look, and I just basically took out a napkin and I showed him my 4-step help process, and he's like, "Whoa, how come they don't just teach us that?" And I'm like, because they just want to sell content. Yeah. It's all about pushing more content, right? And the thing is, it speaks to the problem. And I've heard that more than once now, where someone's asked me, is ransomware a type of phishing? And when training gets into what happens after the click, as opposed to just teaching people to avoid the click, I mean, that's where it goes too far. The people that want to know that will learn that. It's kind of like trying to teach people how to read headers. If they want to, they'll do it on their own. Trying to teach them it's a waste of time, right? It speaks to the over engagement that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah,
there's a happy medium between the right amount of engagement and knowing it's working, using the right intelligence and the right data.
Yeah,
and just playing this game that follows vendor narratives, where it's to throw as much crap against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Right. And just assuming something's sticking, kind of a thing. Right.
It's funny where you say about business email compromise, because I think we're on to business email compromise 5.0. There's various types of business email compromise. And a while ago, we did a video about the organization I was in. We did a video about business email compromise because it was a bit of a problem for our third parties. And just explaining what business email, we started off with this list, the different types of business email compromise. And it was let's just talk, what is it? It's simple. What is BEC? There we go. And then we put this video out, 1 minute long. We never have to talk about it again. Because if it does come up, it's essentially, we just need to teach people to verify. And if they can verify correctly, It doesn't matter if it's BEC or phishing or anything. As long as they can verify. That's what
it's the same thing with the definition of phishing. Like it depends who you talk to. You get a different definition.
Yeah.
You have to simplify. Just tell people it's simply a scam that can come through any communication channel. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And then expand from there as necessary.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I think the reason I talk a lot about simplifying training is because I actually have a program that proves what works. And I know the ones that do work are the ones that simplify the training.
Yeah.
And this is why I advocate for it. The ones that follow all the vendor narratives are going down the path of just engaging with the quote unquote hope something's working or the belief something's working, but never really knowing. So you're playing into the game of stickiness and constantly engaging with the platform, but you don't really know. So you just keep engaging. You just keep trying new things, like more and more and more and more. And then you just get more resentment and more eye rolling and it just doesn't help that way, right?
I've often said training is draining, and it is for me.
Training is what?
Training is draining.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one.
And it is for many people. And the problem is you will get a group of users that are engaged, that love the content and would happily spend part of their working day sat there chewing through your content. But you'll get users at the other end of that scale that literally the minute an email lands in the inbox, they delete it. They're trading. They'll
identify
play.
Movers, right? You have your learners.
Yeah.
You have your never clickers. They always got it. Your learners, they'll click once or twice and then they're either afraid and they snap out of it. Yeah. They're afraid because they realize they're being tricked and they know that it could be personal for them as well as at work. And then you have your movers that you're talking about that just continue to click, right? And they identify themselves.
Yeah. It's so Phishbusters. This is just you, is it? Or you've got
we have a team here. So there's 5 of us, and then I have a couple of contractors that come on between September and March, because I do a lot of work in the high risk industries like the government.
Right.
So if you really look at what I do, you'll see that I've always resonated with high risk industries because compliance isn't enough. Like it isn't what are we doing? Is it working? So it's important to them that they're improving their security posture beyond just compliance and beyond just vanity metrics, right? So I have 2 types of clients: high risk industries and then organizations that have been breached who suddenly realize it's important. And what it tends to happen is the federal government's fiscal year end is March 31st, and they tend to be very active for the second half of the year and not the first half. Yeah. For multiple reasons, right? And one of them being the budget goes back to the Treasury Board, then it gets released, and then it has to be dissipated, and then finally they start their spend in September. So we're at 7 at certain points and as low as 4 at other times. So, but all the clients I work with directly, and that's one of my selling points with my clients is that I don't hand you off to like a team, right? I don't take in your insight and say, oh, that's wonderful, and we really care so much about you, and we're going to do that, and then come back and say, well, we can't. You're dealing with the first and the end of the rope, right? Like I work directly with clients. I present quarterly reports to them. I tell them what the intelligence and the data means, and then I give them insight on how to optimize that data. Things like, here's your never clickers and your learners. If you have a report button, you need to pat them on the back and get them reporting, right? Get them on your side. Yeah. Right. If you don't have a report button, right? Well, then just be happy you got a lot of never clickers and learners. Let's focus on the movers, right? What are you doing with the movers? Are you doing anything visceral? It has to be visceral with the movers. It can't just be same old, same old. Yeah. Are you doing escape rooms? Are you doing something, like what your CBT? Is it simplified? Do you want to use my help? Right. Which I give for free, right? Like, cause it's not, I'm an auditor. I can't be selling training as well. Right. I mean, I do impact assessment.
So do you actually run phishing simulations as part of it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I've had it. So to give you a history of my experience with phishing simulations, I, believe it or not, I've been doing them since before there were actually tools out. So ask me, how did you do that, Cary? How are you doing that?
How did you do that, Cary? How are you doing that?
I was using email marketing tools.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Because
it's
they're
the same.
essentially one and the same.
They are exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So my first client was the Treasury Board of Canada. They came to me at the time. I was trying to start my own VAR business because I was coming right out of the VAR world, right? Um, and they came to me with this phishing issue, and I was like, I had an email marketing tool I was using. It was called Point of Mail. I don't even know if it's still available at this point. So I created this email that looked like a BlackBerry ID reset, and I sent it to 100 of the people at Treasury Board as a proof of concept. And I had created this little landing page that had all these. It looks terrible now when I look back at it. It's got these red cartoons everywhere, and it's got so much writing on it. It's like,
Yeah.
it just makes me cringe. But I put that into my email marketing tool. I sent the email out, and they said, okay, we got it. Now what? And I sent them a little report, and I said, these people clicked, these people didn't. And they were like, next email I got is, got it, love it. And then that was my first client many, many, many years ago now. So when the industry came out with this innovative phishing tool, I was like, oh, baloney. I'm like, oh my God, it's just an email marketing. Email marketing tool has been around for 4 years. Like, the simulators, like 2018, I don't know. And I was like, it's just the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. Now, they did add a lot, too much of metrics to it, but it's basically the exact same thing. An email marketing tool, you send it out to prospective clients and you want them to hit your website. You get notifications saying they hit your website, so they're a hot prospect. The simulation is the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not disguised as marketing. It's disguised to look like phishing. They hit the link or they open the attachment, whatever sort of collects the metrics, and it's the exact same thing, right? So yeah, we've developed our own tool from using an email marketing platform, and then expanded on it as necessary, and then added our baselining methodology and trend analysis, trend intelligence. I have to think about whether I want to use that term, trend intelligence. I might.
I like that. You should trademark that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. I think it stands out because it is the use of the word intelligent. Like, intelligence is used across cybersecurity in many different ways, but not a lot in awareness, probably because there's been a fear about claiming it's actually intelligence. But like open source intelligence, and there's intelligent threat intelligence, they're used across different parts of cyber, but not so much in awareness, as it were, which is interesting.
No. We could use more. We could use more people from other areas of the business getting involved, right? So, like in my example, the value I bring to all my clients, and talk about sticky clients. I mean, I've got clients I've had for 15, 16 years, right? Like, I work with the Department of National Defense, the Navy, Statistics Canada, which speaks to my statistical rigor. I've had them forever. And the interesting part of that is that they need the intelligence because of the risk that they're in, right? Like, it's not. I don't know. I think the term intelligence is interesting because I'm sorry, I'm off my track here because I'm really still thinking about intelligence, because there's so much use of the word data insight and data analysis, and I think we need more intelligence, and we need more input from other departments, right? Like, you have a lot of vendors talking about, or a lot of practitioners talking about using marketing people because they know how to speak to people, right? We need more scientists like myself who know how to create scientific rigor in the data. We need to start pulling these people in, but that requires not letting vendors control the entire narrative anymore and self-assess themselves, right? And I think that's where it really needs to go.
If you could remove one thing from typical awareness programs tomorrow, what would it be? If you could click your fingers and it was gone.
Wow, that's a good question, man. I could click. I don't know how to answer that, because the first thing that comes to my mind is it's more about what I would change, right? And this is a biased perspective, but I think what I would remove is self-assessments. It's got to stop. Like we can't allow vendors to define the metrics that are important to organizations and then use them to self-assess themselves. There's so much bias there. So I think my answer would be remove the self-assessments. There needs to be a best practice similar to the way it's done in every other area of cybersecurity, where there's some sort of an impact assessment that's done objectively as an audit outside of the platform.
So here's an interesting thought. I've been audited for SOC 2 previously.
Okay.
And the audit has been provide evidence that, 50 random names, provide evidence that these people have been trained on phishing simulation results, provide evidence that these people have completed security awareness training. At no point has the content of said awareness training been audited. So that training could be a 30-minute interrogation. It could be a 5-minute CBT. It could be a video that someone pressed play, put it behind their browser window and came back to it later. And the same with phishing, the phishing simulation. There's no assessment of how accurate that phishing was, how good, what the quality was. At that point,
you see that with cyber insurance. They just ask for the metrics for 2 simulations.
Yeah,
2 campaigns.
At that point, is that audit doing more harm than good?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes. Because now you've got people that are just driving metrics for the audit. They don't care about impact. Right. So there's a reason why all my clients work in high risk industries or they've been breached. Right. And this is shifting now because there's so many breaches now. So people they're starting to think a little bit differently about what's going on. But yeah, the compliance thing is definitely driving everything in the wrong direction. But there's this perception that it worked. It's kind of like the reason security theater has always worked over the years. Because if you look at any one organization over the last 20, 30 years, it was highly unlikely they would be breached. So the security theater they've been fed all this time was good enough because it felt like it worked. They're being told it works. They believe it works, and they're not being breached. But now we're at a point in the world now where it's not a matter of if, it's when. And now their thinking is slowly starting to shift, right? Compliance is not enough. Compliance is not security. I saw someone post the other day, I thought it was hilarious. The S in compliance means security. There is no S in compliance. So there is no security in it, right? So that was
I was just working that out.
Oh, trust me. I saw it and I saw all the reactions, and then I was like, why is this funny? Why is it? And it took me a little while, but I'm like, there is no S in compliance, right? So it was brilliant. There's no security in it. It's vastly different, as a matter of fact, right?
It's like I was talking to someone yesterday. I'm refurbing my kitchen at the moment because it flooded. So we've got no flooring down. We're just down to the floorboards. And it dawned on me that the floorboards is compliance, right? It's a perfectly okay floor, but you might get a splinter. There's gaps in it. Dust can come up through it. Spiders can get through. It's not really. It's not waterproof. It doesn't look nice because they're raw, stained, dirty floor. They're not dirty, but they're all floorboards. So you need to put layers on top of it. You need to put underlay, and then you need to get a nice strong flooring, which is moving beyond compliance to actually get some decent layers on there.
That's a great analogy. I like it.
Yeah. So human focused. Humans humans are our greatest. Humans are the weakest link. Humans are our strongest asset. There's always those. Humans are just human, aren't they? They're we're vulnerable in nature. I've got one of the stickers here says "People patch." You can't actually patch people, can you? There's no software patch. There's no off-the-shelf solution for this. This is it takes time. We need to
It does, and
nurture.
I think we don't think of our humans in our organization as the collective enough. We don't think of them as a collective group of users.
Mm.
We also have too many buyers, let's say, that are buying product that they're impressed with because they're technical,
Yeah.
and they're not thinking of the 90% of users that are not going to get this at all, right? So, I just find there's not enough, and again, I have a biased opinion because I look at things from a holistic perspective, and then I break it down into data. And humans aren't data, but data tells you a lot about where to focus and optimize things.
Mm.
But I see these problems, right? Because I exposed it with my methodology. I see that what works is the people that take a visceral approach, the people that don't over engage, the people that see it from the user's perspective, not their perspective, right? When I talk to a client and they say things to me like, and I hear it less and less now, but I used to hear it all the time. Well, we should teach people how to read headers. And I know I'm in for a freaking root, I'm in for a really, I know I'm going to be giving them reports they're not going to like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because I know what they've done. They've now completely confused people, and they've got a technical staff that has no real connection to the humans in their organization at all. Right. And then it bears through in the metrics, right?
It's an interesting point you raised there. I wonder how many people have bought a awareness platform, human risk management platform, based on the outputs for them, based on the reporting, or based without any actual consideration of Kevin in accounts or Gene in finance, or, the different, how does it interact with your end users, and how are they going to, interact with it? And even from a training perspective, I bet lots of people buy stuff because the reporting's great and I can, it produces my board report with one click, but actually doesn't look at how
it's so pretty, and it doesn't actually tell me anything. Because ultimately, when you see these reports, just ask yourself one question: is it proving impact?
Yeah.
Right. These constellation charts that are constantly moving around, it's not proving anything. It's just telling you that you're engaging with it, and then in your mind, you're thinking it's working. So vendors have always used in this industry what psychologists call activity bias. They play on it, and they play on it a lot. And what activity bias dictates is that when we're busy as human beings, we think we're progressing, right? We think if we're busy and we're constantly engaging with something that we're progressing. And in a sense, we are. But without that insight into exactly how much, we don't really know. And the fact of the matter is, there's a point where you over-engage, and then now you're getting the eye rolling, and you're getting the disengagement from the users, and you're getting the they're just appeasing me kind of attitude. And we surpassed that years ago, to be honest. So these reports, to answer your question, I think some people do buy it for that reason, but I think some people, they enjoy it. To them, it's like a little video game playing in some sense, I think. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that complicated. It can really be really simple. What I do is complicated from my perspective, but the reports I give my clients, they just look at it and it's like, yep, got it. That's it. It's not, what does this mean? What does that mean? How did they calculate this? I don't understand. How come this? It's not overwhelming. It's just one metric that matters, North Star metric. I do multiple baselines, a couple dozen baselines with my clients, and then I do my trend analysis that matures over time, right? And then I give them the trend analysis and tell them how to optimize it, how to use it to optimize their program. And then it bears fruit in the baselining that I'm doing. So my trend analysis that I give to them will either work or it won't, and it'll show in my baselining reports, right, whether they're using it.
Excellent.
Yeah. See, I keep spinning that back to what I do, but I mean,
why not? Right at the beginning, when we started recording, you said you were going to leave us with 3 steps, three steps that people can take?
Yeah, it's 3 steps. So it's this is an example, a very simplified example of how to use scientific rigor to test the validity of your platforms with regards to how they're addressing phishing. And again, if anyone's there and they're rolling their eyes going, oh, it's so much more than phishing, that's your vendor speaking. Because here's the thing. Hackers don't give a crap what your vendor thinks. Hackers are still phishing. Phishing is the #1 human risk. If you have a human risk platform and it's not addressing phishing, it's not addressing human risk. It's not managing.
Even all the social, like we look at here in the UK, Marks and Spencers, Jaguar Land Rover, Co-op, they were all socially engineered voice, essentially phishing, just in a different guise. It's
almost every time
phishing.
It's phishing.
Yeah.
It's phishing. Don't let your vendor take your eyes off of that. I think that they're worried, and a lot of people are tired of it, but they're tired of phishing always being used the wrong way.
Yeah.
Phishing's not meant to be used as a content engine. It's meant to be used to actually measure impact. And this is how you can do it simply, right? And this is just one of the many, many tools that I use, and I don't mind giving it away. But simply take 100 users in your organization, right? You have to have obviously more than 300 users, but take 100 users in your organization at random. Every month, select a different 100 users for 3 months. Use the same context-relevant, sophisticated phishing simulation for each group per month. So the key here is a different randomly selected group of 100 users per month for 3 months, the same simulation. Now you've got repeatability and falsifiable evidence as to what's happening. And I'm telling you, there's a reason vendors don't want you to know this, because you're not going to see much impact. You simply won't. You can run it and do it yourself, but you won't. But you have to do it with scientific rigor, meaning when you run the first one, if you're pulling the data in 24 hours, you got to pull the data 24 hours each time. If you're pulling it in 1 week, pull it in 1 week each time, right? These are the types of things that require scientific rigor. If you have to use the right kind of simulation. If anyone wants to DM me, I will show them exactly how to do this. And what I mean by the right kind of simulation is you don't want to start now and use something related to package delivery, because you're going to create an unintentional bias. And that means that November is going to have a certain click rate. December is going to be higher because it has more context and it's more relevant to the holidays. And then January, it's going to drop considerably. So you've added a bias that's going to render the results useless. You have to use a simulation that is not restricted by time of year bias or specific biases with regards to the time that it's used, right? So the idea is, and this is what we specialize in, removing all of the potential biases that affect results so that you can come up with scientific rigor to prove the impact of how your platform works. Does that make sense? Because it's important it makes sense. I think I tried to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, it does. No, that does make sense. That's really quite interesting. 100 users, 100, choose a good test, a strong test, not something seasonal. So something that suits all year round. Send it to 100 users 1 month, 100 users next month, 100 users next month.
Yeah. And if you're using a simulation that refers to a date within the simulation, just change the date. So my tool does that automatically. So my tool, like if I have something that says, I don't know, just out of the top of my head, conference confirmation, like I use that with federal government here because they're always going to conferences, right? And then it's got a date, your conference on November 14th. My application will automatically change that date accordingly to make sure that I'm not creating a bias within the content itself. But so there's plenty of examples I could give you. Make sure it's context relevant, right? Yeah. So like if you're a Microsoft shop and you do a simulation, like you've received a Google Docs document, it really doesn't have any context, right? No. But if it's you've received what's there? Jesus, I can't believe I'm forgetting. Like, what do they call it?
Like a
SharePoint. Yeah,
SharePoint
you can
share.
see the
Yeah.
SharePoint document, right?
Yeah.
And you want to challenge people. Like, don't use these fluffy simulations. Like, I see some simulators out there. It's like it makes me laugh. It's like they've got one sentence at the top. They've got the logo. It's centered, cartoonish kind of logo, not really the real logo. And then right underneath, I got another sentence or two, and then they've got a button, all centered. And then you look at the next one, it's exactly the same. And they're all FedEx, UPS. I see these and I'm like, give me a break. Who, I know who
How is
uses
that?
it. It's people who want to see the improvements, right?
How is that an accurate test? How does that accurately test someone's vulnerability to phishing when it looks really bad?
Well, but it goes back to like what you said before. Like, I think there's no self-respecting security leader in the industry that would admit they're only compliance-based, not security focused. None of them would admit it. It's well over half, though. In reality, it really is. Like,
Yeah.
like, and I think it is shifting. I think there was a point where I would have said 3/4 only care about compliance. It's getting closer to 50-50 based on the sheer number of breaches we're seeing every day. So a lot of this FUD is now it's really come to fruition. It's not just FUD that you never heard anything about, or you never really saw any truth to it, or you heard about, one breach every month or so. Now it's like every single day there's breaches, and these are only the ones hitting the news, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amazing. I think we've run out of time. That's all we've got time for today, but it's been amazing. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for
it's
having me.
refreshing to hear a different take on things and kind of dispel some of the mythbusters, phishbusters. That kind of makes sense. That only dawned on me today. The whole mythbuster. It hadn't dawned on me previously till today. So I take it that was intentional.
It was. It was. I used to have all kinds of mottos that I don't repeat anymore, but it's definitely was part of it. Yeah, Mythbusters, Ghostbusters. Something strange in your email box. Call Phishbusters. Yeah, I was back in the day.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Right. Thank you very much. Where can people find you? LinkedIn, obviously, is probably...
LinkedIn is the best way to find us. We are revamping our website. I keep saying it'll be out next week, and I think we're almost there. I'm completely revamping it, working with some marketing people here internally. I've got it's one of those weird things because I have a team that creates all the simulations, and nowadays simulations require web development skills and stuff. But our website's taken forever because I just keep changing. Like, I just don't like how certain things every time it's like something's missing or this doesn't work with that. And I want to keep it simple. One of the things about what I do is I really keep things simple. Like when I present, like I said before, to a client, a report, there's nothing in there where they're asking questions. It's like, boom, it's working or ain't. And I want to make sure my website conveys that. I don't want to have page after page and go down rat holes. So anyway, for now, LinkedIn is the best way to get me. You can DM me anytime. I love talking about this stuff, if you can't tell. And website to come shortly. So I'm under Cary Johnson. I do have a Phishbusters page, but it really points back to me. I think all it says is go see Cary if you want to see content, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And links to your LinkedIn and stuff I'll put in the notes on this episode as well, so people can find that. But brilliant. It's been really lovely talking to you, and we'll have you back sometime. When things develop in this industry, let's touch base. It'd be good to touch base in a year or so and see, has anything changed? Are we moving in a better direction? Who knows?
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Cheers. Bye.
Take care.